that basically was the beginning of our, what I would call our current lean journey, if you will, or phase two, maybe the maturity, where we literally wiped all the visual boards off the floor. They basically undid everything because it had been too top down. They realized it had been too tools based. It wasn't capturing hearts and minds. It wasn't driving real improvement. It wasn't consistent really with the values at the time. And so 2 Second Lane felt like this way we could engage our base and get our people excited to make improvements because we believed they have genius inside of them. Obviously, our values are kind of along those lines already, and giving them a system to make improvements every day. And so that basically re-energized lean inside Cambridge. And we've been evolving on that journey ever since.
Hey everybody, I'm Elizabeth Swan.
And I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and we're from the Just in Time Cafe. Welcome to our podcast. So at the cafe, we wrestle with tough questions, we talk to groundbreakers, we discuss great books and get insights from Lean Six Sigma leaders and practitioners who are making a difference in the world.
And we let you in on helpful apps, we bring you the news, and we challenge the status quo so you can build your problem-solving muscles.
So Elizabeth, what is on the Just in Time Cafe menu today?
Tracy, I'm so glad you're interested because today's highlight is our interview with Meg Brown. She's the Vice President of Human Resources at Cambridge Air Solutions, where we learned that they've combined Sheetmetal with Unconditional Love. And you need to know more about that. For hot apps, we've got a mobile diary that helps you form a habit of reflection and adjustment. And then for Q&A, we've asked, what makes us constantly try to fit 10 pounds of stuff in a 5-pound bag? Iced coffee might be out since the days are growing colder. So you choose your beverage, the temperature, and then sit back and enjoy me and Tracy.
Up next, it's hot apps.
Yes, today's app is Grid Diary. And we got this from Bob Wallner during our last webinar where he taught us about personal potion planning. So it's a great webinar, by the way, especially if you're getting ready to set some goals and envision what 2025 will mean for you. And you can find that video under webinars on our website. But part of his goal setting and monitoring process was this app, Grid Diary. And it's designed for daily, monthly, and yearly journaling. And it comes with a standard format. It's very simple, intuitive. You can customize it as much as you want. The standard sort of template that it gave me for a daily journaling was today's goal, today's wins, morning rituals and activities, evening rituals and activities, lessons learned, and what am I grateful for? And I needed to adjust since I start my day with what I'm grateful for. I know that there's something that happens to us cognitively if we start with gratitude. So I start there, and I like ending with reflections. So I put gratitude up front, and I switched lessons learned into reflections because that's what I call it. And the app has reminders. So it's helping me switch up my reflection habit to the end of the day, right? Because I would come back, I go to the gym at the end of the day, I'm not at my desk, and I would often just forget. And then just in the morning, I sit down and I'm like, oh yeah, reflections, which is okay to do it. But I wanted it, I really always in my mind was like, I need to do that right at the end of the day. So now I turned on the reminder inside Grid Diary to just say, hey, what's your end of day reflection? More like in the evening.
Nice. Well, I really like what Bob Wallner is trying to reinforce with this app. And it's sort of like that action and reflection cycle because that reinforces habits. And I feel like Hansei is a great habit to having a tool to help Hansei or reflection, which reflection is Hansei in Japanese. It's critical to making changes in terms of how we think, how we act. I mean, we're always talking to leaders about how do you reflect on your day at work, right? So, how did you engage with people? Would you do anything different? What could have gone better? And he boils down the daily journal down to really 3 questions. What went well? What didn't go well? What would you do differently tomorrow? And that's really all you need in order to do some self-improvement. So he created a monthly reflection. It's a bit different. He got an 8-part grid to reflect at the end of each month. So that's pretty cool. I actually did get a chance to download the app, and it synced with my calendar on my phone right away. So I can see what I've got on my calendar when I use the app. And during the setup, it did ask me, what am I going to use this for? And I put in self-care. Like I think you could do goals. Like there's 5 options. And I guess based on the option you choose, it gives you different questions. So I put in self-care, and my reflection and questions were different. They were, what am I grateful for? What would make today great? A daily affirmation. And then obviously later in the day, I'm supposed to come back to it again, because then it says 3 things that happened today and how could I have made today better? So I thought that was interesting. There's different questions based on what you're trying to use it for. And there's so many possible things to reflect on in any given day. Sometimes I need more specific prompts like, what was my health plan versus my actual plan, right? Like fitness routine or dietary intake.
That's exactly what Bob did.
Yeah, yeah. And so, I mean, I'm going to be honest, I really need to work on self-care. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm a business owner. I'm usually last on my own list, and never mind everybody else's. And so, it's good reminders, because sometimes I just don't even take vitamins. Like I know I'm supposed to be taking this, but I don't take it. And, I need to be better at that. I have, sometimes I do Qigong. Thanks to you, Elizabeth. You introduced me to Qigong, and I did it this morning and I was really happy. But, it would be nice to, if I know I'm looking at my health routine, my financial routine, my career routine, and even if I have spiritual goals of some kind. And, I think some specific prompts help very much. And all of this, Hansei, right at your fingertips on your phone if you want, with this amazing app. So I'm really kind of excited to try it and, try it out and see if it helps me, because I really feel like I need to do more of that.
Yeah. And I think what I learned from Bob too is that he set it up to not just have a daily reflection, but he set up a specific monthly one. And that's where he created this grid where it was like, because he was focused on health plan versus actual, right? So at the end of the month, he'd say, okay, what was my plan? What did I achieve with my health plan? Financial plan, financial actual at the end, professional plan versus actual, spiritual plan versus actual. So I feel like you can do obviously yearly too, but I love that we don't often take that second to go, okay, what happened in this past month? And that's a good, 30 days. That's a good test of like, how you doing? What's going on there.
And I just feel like we do shove into, which we're going to talk about in a minute. We do shove a lot and pack a lot into our day. And sometimes I don't even remember what I did last Thursday. I'm like, what? I have to go look at my calendar and go, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot.
Yeah. I'd be one of those people that, if you got me in a court and they were like, where were you last Thursday night? I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember yesterday. So in terms of, and maybe this journaling app would be bad if I had a life of crime. Like I would not want to have all this documented, if I had some nefarious activities, Tracy. But if you do have that, we don't recommend this app. But
right, yeah.
Otherwise, if you are interested, their website says $2.99 a month with a 3-day free trial and $22.99 annually, which then buys you a 14-day trial. But when I downloaded it on my iPhone, the price had changed. And now it was $24.99 a month with only a 1-week trial. So I give them a slight ding for not updating their website. But I do appreciate the free trial because I'm testing it, right? Like you are. And you can download it from the Apple App Store. You can use Google Play. You can sync up the app between your laptop and your phone, and you can see where Tracy already you got it to do your calendar. So if you're looking for a simple, customizable journaling app that comes with standard templates, like I love that Tracy, you discovered a different set because I had a different intention or motive for using it, so it gave me a different template. Yeah. This is a great option.
Yeah, absolutely. I look at these apps all the time and think, where was that 10 years ago, right? Like, there's so much that tries to make complexity so much easier for people's lives. because our lives are becoming more complicated, it seems. And so it's a great way to integrate Hansei into your life. Super intuitive. You use it daily, monthly, and then you can create your own yearly reflection. So we give it an A+ so far.
Thumbs up.
Thumbs up.
I'm Elizabeth Swan, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. In a short while, you'll get to hear our interview with Meg Brown, who is the VP of Human Resources for Cambridge Air Solutions.
Up next, it's Q&A.
Today's question is, why do people and organizations keep giving themselves overly optimistic plans and to-do lists? Why do we fail to learn from the last overly ambitious plan that did not come to pass? And I'm always curious when I run into sort of human behavior, like as to how are we set up cognitively that might contribute to behavior that's not in our self-interest. So sure enough, I found something out there called the planning fallacy. It's well documented. It's a cognitive bias, and it causes us to underestimate the time and costs and risks associated with future actions, while at the same time overestimating all the benefits we're going to get. So apparently this bias leads us and the organizations that we work with to create overly optimistic plans and to-do lists. And the three main parts of the planning fallacy are focusing on the best case scenario rather than average or worst case outcomes, and then neglecting to consider past experiences with similar tasks, right? Because we're often doing similar stuff. Failing to account for unexpected obstacles or delays. And it's great just to see that list, right? What that fallacy, how it manifests for each of us personally. Because then I'm thinking, well, then you could use that list to foolproof your next strategic or personal plan, right? And since we just talked about journaling as a way to reach your goals, this is a great companion piece, right? So you can design questions to vet your strategy or to vet the strategy that you're involved with for your organization. So the questions I would add are, what are your best and worst case scenarios for this plan, right? You have to sit down and think about that. What past experiences have you had with similar tasks? Again, reflection, how'd that go? What obstacles might get in the way, kind of like a mini SWOT analysis? And then what adjustments would you make in lieu of these factors? So, Tracy, this makes me think of you. You are a doer, and you are so good at making stuff happen. But I know, because I truly know you, that you often reflect on having taken on perhaps a few too many things. So, Tracy, I ask, what have you learned?
Okay, I was laughing the entire time you were talking about the planning fallacy, because I'm like, that's my superpower. My superpower is to underestimate time and effort, and then and then I'm in pain later. And as I get older, it's more painful. But it's interesting. So, but I'm actually better at helping others avoid the planning fallacy. But I'm going to tell you honestly, my personal struggle is planning fallacy. I always try to stuff too much in, and I'm better at getting other people to remind them, like, do you feel like this is too much? Right? Like, why don't I ask myself that? I don't know. But anyway, and you and I have a lot of experience helping people with strategic planning. We had a kind of a rash of rash in a good way, I guess. Customers coming to us saying, "Hey, help us with strategic planning." And I'm helping the Navy, and I'm doing a lot of strategic planning for a lot of their groups. And I think what's interesting is, even in those sessions, I feel like we're already planning to stuff 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. And that's the plan. And, I'm going to be honest and tell you, there's only been, out of the many people I've helped with strategic planning, there's probably only 2 groups that were really good and really mindful about making sure it was 4 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag, knowing that they were going to have to account for some other things too.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was impressive. And I was like, good job. And, the other thing that I think is also a challenge is, for whatever reason, people don't like to kill things, right? And so, for example, there's 4 projects, like we do projects all the time, and people, even though there's struggles with some of these projects, sometimes I feel like people don't want to kill them. They just wanted to slowly have a slow death, slow and painful death, rather than just cutting the cord.
Mm,
And I don't know what about cutting the cord is so painful, but it actually improves morale. If you say, okay, we're not doing that anymore, change it.
mm.
So anyway, yeah, I think there's definitely some opportunities there. And yes, that's my superpower for myself.
I think that's great. And I love that you own the fact that it is your superpower, so you're never letting that go. But you have also another power, which is putting a different lens on when you're dealing with organizations, thinking, "Oh my Lord, they are trying to stuff 10 pounds of crap in a 5-pound bag. Like they can't do that." So I'm thinking about that analogy, and I want to think about, yeah, and then we figure out how do we show up where the bag bursts? Like what kind of resources do we then run out and try to find to help us with the fact that we've done that to ourselves? And I also feel like what you just raised is fascinating, that I believe that people have a sense of failure. Like we had to kill that because we weren't able to do it. And so we have failed on some level, as opposed to every time that happens, everyone, you can see them all doing happy dances at their desk. Like, oh my God, we don't have to do that anymore. Now I can focus on this other stuff and not feel bad about not doing it. And I remember similar learnings with our last venture. We were managing partners in building our online training business. We were way too ambitious with what we could accomplish early on. And there's a book called, I'm pretty sure it's Good Strategy, Bad Strategy. And if anyone's interested, email me and I'll find out. I'll go look up the author. But it helped with one of my biggest takeaways, which was just don't make that massive laundry list of everything you want to do, right? Because then it just turns out to be whatever you hit early on that list, and then everything else falls to next year or off entirely, right? And we got a lot more realistic and focused about what we came up with during our yearly strategy sessions after we kind of dealt with that, our little planning fallacy impact on our own. So this is a very human. It's actually was really helpful to go read the reality of that, why we do it cognitively, kind of what's going on there. And then you're just raising more things, Tracy. I have to go research it a lot more. But anyway, good things to keep in mind.
Yes. I'm Tracy O'Rourke, and you're listening to the Just in Time Cafe podcast. We host these monthly, so you can go to www.jitcafe.com and go to our podcast page.
Coming up next, it's an interview with our featured guest, Meg Brown. Tracy, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about Meg?
Yes, love to. I had the pleasure of meeting Meg at the last AME conference. Cheryl Dreckle brought her over for dinner, and we had great conversation. They're doing some really interesting stuff. So she is the Vice President of Human Resources for Cambridge Air Solutions. She has a degree in environmental engineering from Northwestern University and experiences in manufacturing, environmental, construction, IT, and consulting. As Vice President of HR, or Human Resources, she is responsible for all aspects of Cambridge's employee experience, including talent lifecycle processes, executive leadership, and employee development. I was particularly interested in how, is HR driving process improvement, or is it really more around, everybody driving process improvement? She's sort of coordinating. So organizational development, change enablement, lots of things. So really excited to talk to her. And when she isn't busy cultivating relationships at work, you can find Meg and her husband, David, living a jam-packed life with their 4 wonderful sons. Holy crap. I got 2, and to have 4, she's the only woman in the house, man. And we're honored to have her at the cafe.
Absolutely.
Welcome to the cafe, Meg. How are you today?
I'm doing great, thanks. Thanks so much for having me. It's good to be with you too.
Yeah, it's great to have you.
Yes, we are excited. We have lots of questions for you. So we had the pleasure of meeting you last year at the AME conference. Cheryl Jekyll invited you to the dinner, and I'm so glad she did, because then we got to talk with you and realize that you have a very interesting journey where you are, and we would love to hear about it. We thought our audience would be happy to hear about it as well.
Yeah, I'm so excited to talk to you too. I think it was fun to meet you both there, and then to learn to even see you doing this together was pretty cool. So I'm super happy to be here. Be fun.
Great. Okay, so so of course I was looking at your bio, and you said you fell in love with the culture at Cambridge. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it's so true. I have a unique journey to get to Cambridge in the first place. They were actually my client. So I was a consultant and they hired me to help them recruit people. I was in HR strategy consulting at the time. And Cambridge is a small to medium sized family owned, purpose driven business based in St. Louis, Missouri. And I had been recruiting folks for them for a couple of years and just slowly started to be like, this place there is something special going on here. And then when an HR opportunity opened, they actually asked me when I was going to tell them that I would be interested, which was a funny spot to be in. So that's a whole nother story, how all that went down. And long story short, I ended up joining the team. And what was super attractive at that time that I've come to know so much more deeply, I've been there for 7 years now, is this Cambridge is an incredibly loving and courageous place from the outset. We are purpose driven and not ashamed or scared of saying that out loud. And we have some core values that are pretty unusual. They're unconditional love with high expectations, care, courage, and respect. And care, courage, and respect might be like, a lot of companies have those, but that unconditional love with high expectations one, along with the purpose driven nature of the business, really attracted me. I was like, something's unique about this place, right? And so that's what got me in the door. And then as an HR leader, to be responsible for helping bring that to life and scale at the time was one of the reasons they were looking. Like, how do we not break this beautiful heart and soul of this family owned business,
Mhm.
but still grow because our owner wants to grow? I mean, if you meet anybody from Cambridge, we're a high growth place. Like, that's kind of how we're wired, but we don't want to break this beautiful heartbeat, right? And that's hard to figure out. So that was a cool challenge to sink my teeth into.
That's a beautiful description, and it definitely is not the norm. Like you kind of referenced it as you're talking, like, oh, you see a lot of those terms on people's value list of their company, but this is different, right?
Mhm.
That you definitely feel that listening to you. Can you, for our listeners, just give them a little bit of a sense of what Cambridge does?
Yeah, absolutely. So we create healthy working environments for hardworking people. And you're like, okay, that's great, Meg, but what does that actually mean? We make HVAC equipment. So we make heating, ventilation, and cooling solutions. We're a sheet metal shop for industrial and commercial application. So you'd find our units in large, high bay, I always say like football field sized places. Definitely in warehouse and distribution, definitely in industrial. And so that's kind of where we play. So we're a manufacturer. Yeah.
Which brings up to me even more sharply the sense of, okay, sheet metal, unconditional love. Like I'm just loving this combination of what this, you said it's family run,
Yeah.
family owned, that what they've brought to bear. So that's unbelievably impressive.
Yeah.
And I'd love
It's,
to hear just a thought around that unconditional love. The question in my head is, how does that manifest? Like, it's great to have values, posters and stuff like that, which I'm not minimizing that. I just would love to hear a little bit about how that manifests. Like, how do you see that as a culture? Can you, without, sharing too much, because, we don't want to, you're in HR, so we don't want to, share too much, but I would love to hear a little bit more about that.
yeah, absolutely. So it's actually been one of the coolest parts of my journey at Cambridge. It's one of my favorite projects because we had the words, but not behavioral descriptions, which, we need the behaviors.
Mm.
And so it took us almost 2 years to get to like, what does it actually mean? Like if someone like you asked me, what the heck do you mean when you say unconditional love? We found that everybody had different answers and they were all beautiful and lovely. But at some point you're like, no, which one's the Cambridge answer, right? Like, what are we actually trying to do here? What are we aspiring to when we say the words unconditional love and high expectations? What do we mean? And what we ended up settling on is, and I'd be happy to share this if your audience would like to see it. I'm happy to share our values. There's a couple of descriptors, and one of them is that we believe that you are worthy of love just by being human. Like there's nothing you have to do to earn it. And that we're going to choose to believe everyone's doing their best. So we work, that's super hard, by the way. And by no means is anybody at Cambridge actually great at that, because you could spend your life trying to learn how to extend benefit of the doubt, even when it's hard.
Mm.
So that's one of the descriptors of it, is that we believe in benefit of the doubt, and we seek improvement in ourselves first when we're in conflict.
Mm.
So we think like we take responsibility for our own behavior. Those are some of the things that are most important to us, that we see people not perfectly trying to do at Cambridge regularly.
Mm.
And
That's
so,
a great, go ahead.
yeah, no, I'm sorry, Elizabeth. Yeah, it's been, and we balance it, because it's also like, well, you can't just love, I mean, you have to get things done. Like, and sometimes you got to be like pretty firm about getting things done in a business setting, right? Like we have to actually hit the bottom line, and we got to get the product out the door, and we got to get the customer what they want. And love can go a long way towards things, but what do you do when things go upside down, or when you actually need to move something forward?
Mm.
Because you can't just love people all the way home. You have to love them, but then it's like high expectations is the other side. So we always say the two together. So high expectations is that everybody knows where we are and where we're going, that you have a goal and you're going after it, that you hold yourself accountable for achieving the business results that you're in charge of. And that we hold each other accountable as teammates too, to those standards: safety, quality, delivery, whatever those may be. But we don't have to do that to earn the love. Like that's the difference, right? Like the love is inherent. Like you don't have to do anything to earn it.
Mm. You're reminding me of some phrase. I think I got it from Tracy, and actually it's one of the chapters in the book apparently I left you with when we were in Cleveland, but it was assume good intent and seek to understand.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where you
Exactly.
landed there. So then just stepping back a little bit, can you give us a little background? Like how long has Cambridge been on the lean journey? Like how'd that start?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say Cambridge has been on the lean journey for more than 20 years. It's been a long time. And it was very top down, very tools based, and not highly engaged for the first, call it 10. And then around 9 or 10 years ago, a couple of people were invited by our CEO to go see Paul Akers' place and to learn. Our CEO saw Paul Akers speak at a YPO event. And then he said, I'm going to send my people to Paul's place, because he said they could come. And so he sent 3 people to go see Fast Cap, which is Paul Akers' business. And I think it's in Bellingham, Washington.
It is.
Yeah. And they came back and were just lit up from the inside. Like, we're doing this, and we're adopting 2-second lean, and they were super energetic about it. And that basically was the beginning of what I would call our current lean journey, if you will, or phase 2, maybe the maturity, where we literally, at the time I wasn't there, but they wiped all the visual boards off the floor. They basically undid everything, because it had been too top down. They realized it had been too tools based. It wasn't capturing hearts and minds. It wasn't driving real improvement. It wasn't consistent really with the values at the time. And so 2-second lean felt like this way we could engage our base and get our people excited to make improvements, because we believed they have genius inside of them. Obviously, our values are kind of along those lines already, and giving them a system to make improvements every day. And so that basically re-energizes lean inside Cambridge. And we've been evolving on that journey ever since. So we still have a lot of the core of what I would call 2-second lean principles in play, but we've evolved to adopt more tools now, but you're doing them because people are asking for them versus doing them because you're forcing them. And so that's been really cool to see. So
that's impressive. That's impressive to come back, and then the learning to be, okay, get rid of all the visual boards, let's go back to ground zero and build this like it should be built, which is, with respect for people.
Yeah, well, right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's so true. Yeah. I wish I was there at the time, because it had to be a pretty interesting period at Cambridge. The people who were talk about it like very much like it wasn't easy, and it was, you know, you had to just stay committed. They just never gave up. They were like, we're doing this morning meeting. We're going to do it every day. It's terrible. Nobody wants to go, but we're going to try to do better tomorrow than today. And it's like adapting continuous improvement mindset, even for that, right? Like, okay, what didn't work today? Let's try it. And today we do it twice a day now. We've been doing it every day without missing a day for 8 years. It's a huge part of our culture. It's a huge part of our lean system. And that meeting, it's not the only thing, but it's a really important piece.
You do a huddle twice a day?
Yeah.
Is it the whole company or the?
Yeah. So, well, I'd say yes and no. Everyone should go to one once a day. There's a first shift morning meeting and a second shift morning meeting, which isn't in the morning, but it's still called the morning meeting because that's just what it is at Cambridge. So the first one is definitely most of the people, because most people work day shift, especially on the non-shop side of our house, of course. But second shift does the exact same meeting at 3 p.m. every day. And so if you miss the morning, you can go to the afternoon or vice versa.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
So that's one aspect of what's happening with lean at Cambridge today. What are some, what's it look like today in terms of lean and process improvement and applying tools and culture? What would you say is a differentiator in that journey right now at Cambridge?
Yeah. So one of the biggest projects that we've taken, and it's actually interesting because it is a unique combination between HR, my team, and our operations leadership, where we realized we had some pretty major quality events happen in the last 18 months. We are working to diversify our revenue streams and bringing new products on board. And did you know when you do that, it can be a little bumpy?
No, I can't imagine, Meg.
So that's been true for us. And it's allowed us to realize the next phase of what do we need to do. And that really comes down to what does our quality management system actually look like, and how do we do it in a way that incorporates our people value stream and our people systems, and how do we do that well? And so last quarter, a group of people spent some time. We tend to think in quarters at Cambridge. That's how we do our strategy planning and all that stuff. So last quarter, we had a group of people go to school a little bit on quality management systems, and they basically developed a model based on so many lean people, really through AME, through connections that we've had. Just people, I just love the continuous improvement world because everyone is so open and, oh, I know how to, I've done that with my place. I'll show you what we did. Like even authors of books are like, I'll talk to you. It's just amazing. And so we learned a lot and basically decided what the system we thought we wanted to implement was. And this quarter we're in right now, we're doing experiments. We have two plants, and we're doing experiments in small areas of each plant with using this system. So we think the system is great, but who knows if it really is. And we're going to let the experiments inform what that looks like. And the reason it's a combination of HR and quality management is that I have a person on my team. Her name's Becca Jenkins. She is the project manager of technical training. Technical training has been something hard for us to tackle. And we've been wanting to implement TWI. And once you looking at job instruction for TWI, you realize if I don't have a stable process, I have no business writing JIBs. And so that road led us back to quality also. So operations we had quality events that led operations to that road. And then HR is sitting here going, hey, we really do want to get better at technical training. We can't do that if the processes aren't quite yet stable. And so those two roads kind of converged in this QMS project. Like, hey, let's actually figure out how to get this processes stable. And then that will eventually turn into where we need them, JIBs and job instruction as the method of training and those kinds of things. So that's the work we're doing right now, which is pretty cool to be partnered so closely with operations to do that.
That's great, because that's another thing we wanted to ask you about was, you're as VP of HR, like, how is HR involved in the lean effort? You just gave one example there, but kind of going forward or as a standard, how's that worked?
Yeah. So like, how do we do lean or continuous improvement in HR?
Go ahead, Tracy.
More collaborating to bring lean to everyone is So you're collaborating to work on things, you have projects that you're working together. And so is it just completely integrated all the time that you're working, that there's pieces that you own? Like, does everybody own lean? Like, how does that work in terms of the structure?
Yeah. Okay, got it. So we have this debate and it's ongoing. Does everybody own lean, or do we need continuous improvement people that do lean? And we're like, we've never bitten off, like, no, there's a role and we're assigning it to someone yet. We do have actually a CI coordinator in one of the plants. So we're in a little experiment there, but it was nervous to do it because we really want it to be everybody's. Like, we want the way we do work at Cambridge to be continuous improvement based. That is what we want. The way we do our morning meeting, the way we set up our daily habits, we would hope it's driving towards that. But the fact is, it's very difficult to get there. And so sometimes you need some help with full-time people to help you do some of that. And so I'd say we're a little in between. Like, you could argue that Becca on my team is a continuous improvement role. It is. Have we claimed it as such or as a department? No. But the work is to do continuous improvement. Some of the other things we do for everyone is when you join Cambridge, we do a Lean 101 out of the gate. You learn about the 8 wastes and the history of lean, because you are going to be asked and empowered to make lean improvements to your area within guardrails. You can't impact the product. You can't make it less safe. Like, we have some rules and regulations, if you will, about how to do that. And so you can't do that if you don't know what waste is and how to eliminate, and like, how do I even see it? And so if I hired either of you tomorrow, you'd join, and within your first 30 days, at some point, you'd go to a class called Lean 101, and we'd teach you about the 8 wastes. And then we'd ask you to get engaged with the system of making videos and getting yourself accustomed with your team. And we set aside 45 minutes a day in our plant to do the morning meeting, and then the remaining 30 is lean and clean time. So that at that time, we are not making product. Our people are making improvements. Our product at that time is improvements, if you will. So that's a daily habit. We do that every day. And so if I don't teach them as the HR team, if my team doesn't figure out a way to teach them what the heck this thing is they're about to enter, then they'd be really lost. And so those are some other ways where an HR process is driving some continuous improvement, or at least understanding of it.
And just out of curiosity, how long is that first training when they get hired? The one that Tracy and I are going to go to once we get hired.
I know, right? Yeah, you're both hired.
When you tell us that we're hired, we'll come to the.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think it's about 90 minutes. So it's 60 minutes ish of classroom, super interactive classroom. And then we go do a waste walk in the plant.
Awesome. I was going to ask if it was hands-on at all.
Yeah. And then we share our, like, what'd you find? And they take little clipboards and pens, and they go and they write down, like, they try to bucket it and what kind of waste they think it is, and that kind of thing. Yeah.
Wow.
Well, our time is getting very short here, and there's so much to talk about. I'm very intrigued by what we've already talked about, like the culture and the unconditional love. But I also want to ask you this question about, I will say that there's lots of places I go and organizations are not successfully building coaches, right? So they have lots of problem solvers, but are still struggling with building coaches and a format for that. So I know that you've been doing some work there, and I'd love to hear anything you want to share about the coaching and developing coaches at Cambridge. We would love to hear, and our audience would probably love to hear too.
Yeah, absolutely. So we are about, I'd say, 3 years into a transition from a more traditional top-down management system to a coach-based, heart-based coaching model for leadership. And the way we're doing that is through a program called Core Leadership Training that was created by Cheryl Jekyll.
Oh, yeah.
And we have trained, I think we're at 70 people at Cambridge, maybe, over the last 3 years in this system. And this system is a coaching system. Now, like, teaching them is one thing, doing it is another. And so we have anyone that graduates from that program is immediately inserted into monthly rhythms where we review skills and where we go over, how do you stay curious instead of problem solving? What does it look like to use the phenomenal but so simple power of open-ended questions versus directive answers? What does it look like to use reflective listening? And so those are skills that we are teaching our leaders and refreshing them on pretty regularly. And this
Mm.
last cohort of core was so cool. Cheryl has gotten her product to where a company can teach it themselves. And so we did this last cohort. 5 of my graduates said yes to teaching. And so they're leading the cohort, and it's just the coolest thing because you're starting to see, and their skills are accelerating massively by being the ones teaching others.
Mm-hmm.
So that's been a really cool, it's been a cool transition to watch happen. And I've got young leaders who are now just innately choosing coaching, not even necessarily knowing they're doing it. And that's been really powerful to see that happen. So yeah.
Yeah, that is. And that's a great sort of what do they say? When you can teach it, I mean, that's when you really know it.
Completely. Yeah.
Right. So it's sort of like becoming a teacher is part of development, right? And then when you become a manager after that, wow, you're probably gonna just do all those right behaviors for coaching.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, and what I've noticed is I think we've created a couple of things through CORE, that tool. One is that we say often at Cambridge, you'll hear us say leadership is a team sport because leadership can feel very lonely. And we're working hard to get our leaders to turn to each other for help and support and like role play the hard conversation you got to have with your teammate next week. Like, let's do it. I'll help you. I was in CORE too. Let's get our books out. And leaders do that all the time now. And then the other one I think is that the idea that you can be in it together. Like it's okay to be a leader that's learning and to tell your people, I'm trying this new skill like that. And so that I think has gone a long way towards teammates being gentle and grace-filled and all those things towards the learning leader who's trying to do it differently and maybe feels a little clunky or awkward sometimes doing so. I think because we've had so many people learning it, I think that's actually one of the cooler outcomes we've had too.
Yeah.
This is go ahead, Tracy.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
Well, it's just so fun to hear about this on so many levels. Like, I feel like it's both got this incredible heart, but also an exciting experimentation mindset. Like, I love that you work in quarters and try stuff. And you sort of offhandedly have mentioned, well, we're trying that. We'll see how it goes. We're trying that. Or watching what's happening now with, having brought in Cheryl's core leadership training. Like, those are just exciting things to hear about. And it just feels like I could see why you fell in love with the culture. And obviously now you're a huge piece of it. And it's just incredibly dynamic.
It has, that's accurate. Very dynamic. I think that what I love about the word experiment is it takes the pressure off. Right? I'm going to do this big, brave, bold thing. We're going to try this thing we've never done before. But if we call then suddenly it's like, well, it might work, it might not. It's really no big deal. Versus I'm going to roll out this program to all 170 employees, and we're going to, I've burned myself in my HR career a few times learning that lesson. So experimentation is so much better.
I know. If you don't have experimentation, you have a series of career limiting moves.
Exactly. I think you kind of spoke to this just a little bit, but why is it that leaders are uncomfortable with new behaviors in a way that makes them look vulnerable, right? Like, so, and I don't mean that as a negative comment, but I just feel like the assumption is, leaders are supposed to know things and to admit that you're learning something and you're trying to be a better leader, somehow that is too vulnerable for, I don't know. I mean, I think it's, when we work with organizations and kind of, they're all working to try new skills. I keep telling people, do it now, because if you're not vulnerable now, when everybody's vulnerable, you're going to feel really weird in a few months.
It's so true. Gosh, it's so true. I feel like it's because of at Cambridge, what I notice is that it's often the courage required to do so is too steep of a mountain to climb in that moment. And so one of the reasons why I love our courage core value is that we are talking about courage as a thing you practice all the time. And like to get more comfortable being uncomfortable. And because it is, you're so right, Tracy, it is vulnerable to be trying something for the first time it's a vulnerable moment for you and the people around you. And so it takes courage because of that. Like if there's vulnerability, then there's courage required. Those two things go together. And
I love that.
People, if people are struggling with vulnerability, it's probably, in my case, in my life, it's because I don't have enough courage yet to handle it. Like to,
Yeah.
or I don't have enough encouragement around me to give me the courage to do it.
It's kind of that three whatever the stool that has 3 legs, 3-legged stool. So you have vulnerability requires courage, which requires unconditional love, right?
Yeah. Oh
So
gosh,
those are the pieces.
yeah.
Oh man, I could talk to you for quite some time. This has been awesome. And I know people probably want to reach out to you. You know, you mentioned, hey, I'll share the values, even simple things like that. But what's the best way if people wanted to just like say, hey there, reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on LinkedIn. That's probably the easiest way. Then from a Cambridge perspective, it's cambridgeair.com. We have a lot of this stuff is on our webpage or on our YouTube channel or social media, honestly. We tend to talk about these things on those channels too. We're not, in fact, a lot of our social is not product based. So those would be all.
Perfect. Love it. We'll leave both those links for our listeners. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for.
So much fun. Thank you so much for coming to the cafe. I so enjoyed that.
It's the best cafe session I've ever had. Thanks, ladies.
Thank you, Meg.
Be sure to register for our September webinar, Stop the Insanity. Unplug your materials resource planning with Jerry Wright, our dear friend. He'll give us some practical insights from his new bestseller, The Insanity Trap, where he's found amazing materials planning success with data-driven MRP and Kanbans. Another great resource for more realistic planning. So we're going to leave you the registration link for that.
If any of you did not catch the latest webinar and you'd like some lean-based tools for personal goal setting, we'll leave you the link to the video for the latest webinar, Personal Ocean Planning, Why Leave Your Future to Luck, with the amazing and honest and just incredibly humble Bob Wallner. Check that out.
Also, I'll be keynoting at the Global Lean Summit the week of September 15th in Indianapolis. So hopefully you'll join me. The link is in the show notes. And stay tuned for all the news by joining our community at the Just in Time Cafe.
Thanks for joining me and Tracy. You are our favorite thing about the Just in Time Cafe. We look forward to being your lifelong learning partners.
Join us every month for your jolt of lean caffeine.